All right. So it said recording in progress. Does that mean it's now recording? Hey, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of what should our podcast be called?
I don't know. Something about pillows.
Pillows. That's right. We had to put 2 yellow pillows back there because the couch cushion is a little wrinkly and it looked funny. So anyway, we've got this awesome new wallpaper today just for you. This is a real wallpaper. It's not a digital wallpaper. So that's up and coming. But anyway, today I am joined by the amazing Madison Gaston. Thanks for hanging out with me today.
Anytime.
Madison Gaston is here because Jess is hanging out with the kiddos so that we can have an uninterrupted interview. And I've realized that my wife will never self-promote. She does not like talking about herself and the amazing things she's doing. So I have to ask other people to come and talk about the amazing things that she's doing, because she is doing amazing things. But my door is creaking and that's okay. But anyway, Madison, tell us a little bit about your YWAM journey, and we'll just start chronologically from the beginning. So yeah.
Okay. So I came to Hawaii to do my DTS in January of 2019, and I completed that in June, went home for 2 months, and then came back to do my first secondary school, the School of Missions and Evangelism, in September 2019. And in that school, I was asked to move long-term to Cambodia. So I said yes, and I moved out there, and then 4 months later, COVID hit, and so I was back home in Tennessee, not knowing what to do, and I felt like God closed the door for Cambodia and said it's time to go back to YWAM Honolulu. And so in August of 2020, I came back and joined staff, and I've been on staff for almost 2 years now. I think it's coming up on the 2-year marker, and I've led 2 teams. I led 2 teams last year, one to Mexico and one to Kenya with the discipleship training school. And then this year, God said, buckle up, it's going to be crazy. And so I got home from Kenya in February, had March off, and then April, I started the BCC, the Biblical Core course that Jess runs. And then when I thought it couldn't get any busier, I overlapped the school with the TESOL, which stands for Teaching English to Speakers of Other Languages. And so it certified me to be an English teacher, and I got 2 accreditations, one for like secular and one like a religious one. So I'm able to go into closed nations because it's not a religious thing. It's just like, oh, she's just an English teacher. So that just ended on Sunday. So nice. From April to last Sunday, it's been nonstop schools. And then starting next week, we start another DTS. And I'll be school leading.
Nice.
Yeah.
You are a busy person. Is there like a YWAM Honolulu award for doing all of the schools that they offer? Are you how many people have done every single school?
I talked to the base directors, and they said that it only counts if you've done all 4 on the base. And so that's Erin, this woman on our base, and then me and Madison, another girl who just completed it. So they were supposed to do something at graduation, like acknowledge us, but he forgot, and he was like, well, now you know your rewards in heaven. So I was like, okay, thank you.
That's awesome. All right, well, let's just back up a little bit and give some context here. You said you did your discipleship training school in 2019.
Yes.
Were we here?
Yes, that's when Ansel was a baby.
All right, we were here. And then, so you did 3 months of training here, and then where did you go for your outreach?
The Philippines.
Nice. Can you just tell us a little bit about that outreach?
Yeah, so I went to 2 different islands in the Philippines. I went to Baguio, which is on Manila, and then Cebu. And our first month in Baguio, it's more like city life. And we did so many vacation Bible schools, and we climbed so many stairs because every church was either on the top of a mountain or at the bottom of one. So every day we just hiked a bunch of stairs and taught a bunch of dances and Bible stories. And then our second location was Cebu, Philippines. And I fell in love the second we got there with the base and with the people. And our main ministry there, which is why I think I fell in love with it so much, was they have so many ministry locations that they just go to a village or a slum with a speaker, and they play a song, and all these kids run up And they're like, YWAM, YWAM. And then they say, okay, go and get your mom, your dad, your cousins, your siblings, your aunts, your uncles. Like on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, go. And then all of the kids disappear. And then like 5 minutes later, crowds of people come. And then we just do like open air kind of thing. So we'll do songs and dances and then end with sharing the gospel and praying for different kids and their families. And then we feed them chocolate pudding. And so it was like the best time. And I wanted to stay so bad, but I was like, I think my mom would like be so upset if I just didn't come back and didn't tell her. She would, be pretty sad. So I came back.
Nice. Good choice.
Yeah.
Madison, tell everyone how old you are.
I'm 24.
24. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So DTS 2019, getting some training.
Yes.
Who taught Bible overview in your school?
Jess Baker.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Philippines on outreach. And then your next school was School of Missions and Evangelism.
Yes.
That's where I met you for the first time.
Yes.
All right. Tell us a little bit about that school and then your outreach.
Yeah. So it has a focus of just preparing long-term missionaries. And when I was in the Philippines, I felt the Lord say, like, I want to prepare you more to go out. And so I really felt strongly to do this school. And in that school, I learned a lot about missions, like long-term, which is good. But I mostly learned that I wasn't ready, or that I believed this lie that once I get on the mission field, then I'll really fully give my yes to Jesus. Then I'll really surrender everything. But right now I'm okay. I can still have these like things, but once I'm there, it'll be okay. And so I wrestled with that the whole time, but then made this 2-year commitment and really felt like the Lord say, like, this is it. So I was like, okay. And it was a very tearful goodbye. And then we go to Cambodia and we teach English. And wasn't an English teacher back then and barely one now. And so I didn't really have the heart for it, which is very sad. Like, I can realize that now, knowing what it takes to teach English. But that's what we would do every single day, 2 English classes, and then we would take Khmer classes. And there it really hit me like, whoa, this is a lot harder than it seems. And I know it was only 4 months, but it was the mindset of 2 years. So when you go on a 3-month outreach or a 2-month, you can see the end date. You're like, okay, 10 weeks. I know I'm going back to Hawaii. I know I'm going back home. I'll have Chick-fil-A. I'll have McDonald's, like all these things. But in the mindset of 2 years, I was like, oh, I need to be okay with the food. Like, I need to joyfully wake up and learn Khmer. I need to be so present in this ministry and all these things. And it was very challenging, mentally. And then so COVID hit, and in 24 hours, I had packed up my whole life that I thought would be there for 2 years and walked across the border of Thailand, drove 8 hours, and then was at an airport in Bangkok, ready to come home. And then 48 hours later, I was sitting in my bed in Tennessee. And I was like, how did I get here? It was so crazy. So yeah, that one was a wild experience.
Yeah. It is interesting how much COVID-19 displaced so many missionaries all over the world.
Yeah.
A lot of people had to end up coming home and leaving the field.
Yeah.
And Cambodia overall was a pretty difficult outreach, right? I mean, difficult.
Yeah.
And I'm just so impressed with your resilience. You've had difficult outreaches. You've had other outreaches that we'll talk about, I guess, that were also probably difficult, not easy. And you've always kept a good attitude. I've never, ever heard you complain. And so that's something that I really appreciate about you.
Thanks.
So, all right, coming back home from Cambodia.
Yes.
And then you came on staff after that?
In August of 2020, I came to do our Gateway, which is an introduction to staffing program where you taught again. Jim taught me again, and it was great. I think that was my favorite week on finances again, because that's what I'd heard before. So it's yes, I know this lesson. And Gateway was awesome because I really, from the first week, I felt like God say that I need to process all the things that did happen in Cambodia, which were 3 really heavy things. So it's whoa, okay, good thing I'm just on yard and can just spend time reading the Bible and doing these like 2 little lectures. And so I really got to unpack a lot of things, and I categorized Cambodia as like hard, and God wasn't there. And God so graciously was like, I was here in this moment. Like here I was in this moment. And it was so cool because I never experienced God speak in that way, where he like visually showed me like situations where he was there. It's like he gave me his perspective, like a bird's eye view. I was like, whoa, I didn't know you could do that. Like that's really cool. And so it was like comforting, but then also very like humbling, because there's a lot of repentance and like, oh, I'm sorry, God, I thought you weren't there, like kind of thing. But yeah, Gateway really prepared me to come in staff. I think I originally came in wanting to staff the School of Missions and Evangelism and not staff the discipleship training school. And I remember telling the directors of that school, is like, I'm not good for that school. I'm not good for the DTS. Like, I will not be good staff. And this is my 3rd school I'm about to staff. So they really were like, no, trust me, it'll be fine. Just do it. And so, yeah, God spoke a lot and prepared me into that, where I was able to make a 2-year commitment and start staffing.
Nice. So then you staffed a school, and how many outreaches have you led since
2.
then? 2. And where did you go on those?
Mexico and Kenya.
Mexico and Kenya. Tell us a little bit about your Mexico trip.
That one was wild. I led a team of 5 girls with another girl. So there were 7 of us, just girls going, and we stayed our first 3 weeks in an indigenous village in Mexico, in the mountains of Mexico. We had to take like 3 buses and then a boat to get to where it was. So it was really cool, and it was really beautiful, because it's just like you're driving on this lake or riding on this lake, and then it's like mountains on each side, and it's like, boop, there's a village, like all these cool things. And so these people are called the Huichol people, and they're actually part of the unreached people groups that we prayed for before we even knew our location. So it's kind of like full circle, like, whoa, God, like you knew way back then that we were going to meet with these people. And so it was a really cool experience. The community is like divided into the Christians and the non-Christians, and we stayed right in the middle of the non-Christians, which was fun. So we got to hike through the mountains to go to church and to use Wi-Fi, and we learned how to make jewelry. It's called Shakira, which is fun. Learned how to, this woman told us that to get a husband, to know that we're like ready to be married, we have to know how to like mud up a wall. So like get mud and make it cement, make a tortilla, and dig a trench. And so we did all 3, and then they were like, oh, you're ready to get married. We're like, yay. So yeah, saying that to a bunch of girls is wonderful. And then we moved to an orphanage more near Morelia area, and we were supposed to originally stay there 2 weeks, and then we ended up staying the whole like 5.5 weeks that we had left, and it was the best thing ever. My team had some like difficulties where, yeah, the girls just had a hard time, and so they just kind of lost the perspective of like being on outreach, and lost their heart and desire for missions. And so that was really challenging, because none of them wanted to be there at that point. And so I had a hard time, like, how do I describe how this outreach was? But for me, it was so growing, and I learned to like really listen to the Holy Spirit. And like I would usually just like say something back if someone like comes at me, but in that time I would just be like, Jesus, I need you so much right now, because I really don't want to yell, and I know that you don't want me to yell. And I was like, oh, I've never done that before. And also that's kind of where I guess the story, that like the whole BCC experience that I'm here for like starts, because that was when I really fell in love with the Bible. And I didn't see it as some like scary book. It was like my ultimate place of comfort. So this outreach was crazy, and it was like wild. And then every day I would like run to my house, grab my Bible, sit in a hammock, and like just read. And it was like, okay, if I'm in the hammock reading the Bible, it's okay. Like, and I just have so much like fun, and it was such a peaceful time. And that's kind of where BCC started going through my head. I was like, I don't know about that. Yeah.
Nice. All right. So Philippines and then Cambodia and then Mexico.
Yeah.
Cambodia and Mexico, both difficult outreaches where I think other people probably would have just quit and been like, you know what, missions isn't for me. But Madison Gaston is amazing and kept going. Came back to staff another school, and then that one went to Kenya. Tell us a little bit about your Kenya outreach.
Yeah. Oh, it's the best. I like a backstory just to feel the weight of Kenya is when I was 15, I went on my first mission trip to Mexico. And when I came back, I felt like God said, like, Africa. And I remember sharing to my church and being like, they're like, how was your time in Mexico? And it's like, I feel called to Africa. And they're like, what? You just came from Mexico? It's like, yes, but I was 15. And so my church, like, I couldn't go at 15. So it just kind of got like back seat like in my life. But over the past 8-9 years coming up, it was like God just continually bringing up Africa. And I know Africa's a continent, there's a lot of countries, and I was like, God, is there a specific country? And I got like a few. Kenya was one of them, and so it was like Uganda and Ethiopia. It's just kind of those three like bouncing around. And anytime I was like, oh God, like I don't want to focus on Africa, I need to focus on where I'm leading a team to, God would be like, oh, but Africa, like I want you to remember, I'd be in Mexico in the orphanage, and they're like we're really thinking about starting one of these in Africa, like would you want to help us with that? And I was like, what? And just like different things, different words that people spoke, it was like, whoa. And I had like so many words and so many pictures that it would finally come to fulfillment. And then here I am about to staff my second discipleship training school and lead my second team. I get to lead with my childhood friend. Like he came to staff and we've known each other since we were like 5 and 6, I think. And so we're leading a team together, which is crazy. And then my friend who's here, her parents come and they're missionaries in Kenya. We were like, whoa, should we just like ask if we can go? And then they were like, yeah, you don't need like vaccinations. You don't need like to quarantine, all this stuff. You just need like negative COVID tests. And we're like, we can do that. And so we brought it to our directors and they're like, let's just pray about it. And so after many like long conversations, they gave us the green light. And then I remember sitting in one of our classrooms and just like it finally hitting like, whoa, you're going to Africa. Like God is fulfilling this. And so the whole time leading up to it, the whole 3 months of the lecture phase, it's kind of like hard to believe. And there were some like questions like, would the borders close? Would this happen? Because that's when everything in like the south of Africa was like kind of closing down. So it's like, okay, I'm not going to get too like, I'm not going to hold on to it too tight because it could change. And then we went, and the first day we went to an orphanage, and our contact took a picture of my co-leader Riley walking like with this little girl. And my mom's friend had given me like, I got this picture for me of me going to Africa. My mom and her friend both had given me this same picture like multiple times throughout the years. And so one day at church, it like kind of grew, and my mom's friend was like, oh, I see this guy with you. She was like, but it's not your husband. Like you guys aren't interacting like it's your husband, but he's there with you playing with these kids. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, have you heard my mom say that before? Like, that sounds a little familiar. And she was like, no. And so then they talked and they were like, yes, that's the picture. And as they talked, like they got like such a perspective on this picture of me in this field with these little kids. And it's just like, whoa, God, this is cool. And so that first day in Kenya in the orphanage, our contact snapped the picture of Riley with these kids, and she posted on Instagram, and my mom's friend called and was like, that's the guy that I saw in the picture.
Whoa, that's crazy.
So I was like, whoa, that's like years ago, like 2 years ago that they got that picture. And it's like coming to fulfillment, which was huge for me, but also huge for him. And so, yeah, over 1,000 people got saved. Yes. We shared the gospel with Muslims for the first time, like unreached Muslims that had never heard the name of Jesus, heard the full gospel, and people got healed. And there was just like so many cool things that happened. It was like, whoa, this is definitely like a fulfillment of God. And I just saw him, answer and fulfill every promise he's ever said.
So good.
Yeah, it's
So
crazy.
good. Man, I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. I'm reading through the YWAM values book right now, and I love that they really just sum up everything to like hear God, obey God, persevere.
Yeah.
And I love that because you persevered through 2 hard outreaches,
Yeah.
and you weren't just like, I quit. You got to see amazing fruit in Kenya, and
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. And Jess and I really feel like God clarified to us last year where to equip those who will go. And so I love that you can sit here and share all the places you've gone. You've said yes to Jesus and are just willing to do hard things, climb mountains literally to preach the gospel to unreached people. Like that is amazing. So good. So thank you so much for going and doing. And then part of that equipping, you did the BCC, the Bible Core course, which Jess is the director of that program. Tell us a little bit about your takeaways from that school.
Oh, that was the best. I genuinely, going into it, didn't think that I could do it because it is a very challenging school and it's like academic and just very intense, really busy. And so like I hear really great stories about it, like, oh, it's life-changing, but it's so intense and it's so hard. And so I was like, oh, I'm so nervous going into it. Like, can I actually do this? And genuinely, every quarter that I've been here, Jess has been like, do you want to do the BCC? Even when I was like starting the Gateway program and was already staffing, the school had started. It was like day 2 of the BCC. And she was like, you can still come. Like, it's okay. It's only day 2. You can still come. And I was like, Jess, I can't come. But it's been really cool, like, because then I got to do it and it's like, whoa. And so it's like fun for all of us. But yeah, I went in really scared, like, can I actually do this? It was just 4 of us in the schools. It was very small, which had its pros and cons, but overall, like, really good. And it was, we first studied Jonah just to practice the method. And that was cool because that's like a familiar book. And it was cool to like see the things come to life and you learn things about God and about like the people that are reading this story that kind of open your eyes. You're like, whoa. So it's that first like, okay, I think I can do this. Like, I think I kind of have the method down. Like, maybe, I don't know.
I'm going to put you on the spot here. You're mentioning the method.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about the inductive method?
Yes. So it's 12 steps. I did hear that they changed a step. I don't know if Chance was joking, but there are 12 steps in, oh gosh, I'm gonna try to remember them, but they like lead up to just an inductive study of the Bible. So first you pray, which is always great, inviting the author of the book into the time, which is so cool, like to put it in that perspective. And then you do your first reading. So you just read through the book, start to finish, just to get a full picture. And then we do something called paragraph titles, where each like paragraph in the book, you kind of give like a title. There are some like restrictions on it. It has to be the words in the paragraph. It has to be in a certain order. But its main point is so that you can flip through and you can kind of like see what the paragraph is talking about.
Did you like paragraph titles? They're pretty controversial.
I love them.
Me too.
That was my biggest like warning that people gave me. It's like, oh, the paragraph titles, watch out. Jess was like, they shouldn't take long. You should just like plow through them. It's like, okay. And then I really enjoyed them because there was so much structure. I love that there was like, okay, it has to be like under 5 words. It has to be in order. When things were like, oh, just do whatever you want. I was like, okay. But after paragraph titles comes book structure draft. And then you take all your paragraph titles and you give like basically each chapter like a title. You title like what's happening in this. And then you break up like the chapters into like different segments or different like divisions and just see if you can like kind of categorize the book where you know like, okay, here's where this is being addressed. Here's where this is being addressed, kind of thing. After that is the HBR, the historical background report, which is also controversial, but really fun. It's like the heaviest, I feel like, but it's where you just like find out all this information about.
And when we say controversial, it's just meaning people in the school either love it or they don't like doing it. That's what we mean by controversial.
So it's either like a favorite or like a least favorite. because it is so much work. But you find out things about the author, you find out things about the people that are originally reading it, like what it meant to them, what was going on in their culture. And that's what you need to know to read the book, because it's not written to us, it's written for us.
Yes.
And so it's like, it's fun. That part's fun, but it is a lot of work. And then you get into our charts where we observe the text and then interpret the text. And so we have like a method of color coding everything, and each color represents a different observation, like whose, where's, contrasts, questions, results, different things. And so basically your Bible becomes this beautiful color coded thing where you can know everything, like where everything's happening, and then you take different parts of that and you interpret them. So like, why was this said? Like, why did Paul mention this? Like when he says women should be quiet in church, it's like, does he, like, why did Paul say this? Like, why would Paul want women to be quiet? And then you make your interpretations based on the text, like based on what you've learned in the HBR, based on what you know about the surrounding things. It's like, okay, now you can put it together to hopefully answer your own questions as to why. And then, is timeless truth a step?
I think so.
Okay, then you make a timeless truth, and that's just like a statement that was true then and it's true now. It could be as simple as like, God is good, but they ask you to be a little more specific. And then from there, you do final book structure. And then you really just like finalize that book structure that you made before. Is there anything you want to change now that you understand the text more? Is that really what they were talking about in that chapter or not? And then you do a book summary where you answer like a few questions about the theme and the main idea and the reason it was written, which was my most challenging step, because it was like, oh, you go so like specific in the observations and then you zoom back out really far at the end. And then you do a teaching. I'm missing a step. What?
I'm not sure.
Book summary. Oh, application. the reason for the whole method. Yeah, then you create a teaching and then you apply it to your life.
Nice.
That was
good job. Now. Good job. Well done. Well done. All right, so that is all happening for one book for a week, right? I mean, that's if you're studying the book of Romans, you're doing all of those steps for the book of Romans.
Yes.
Plus you're sitting in lecture as well to get some of that content throughout the week as well. What was your favorite week of lecture?
Mark.
Who taught Mark?
Jonathan Spain.
Howard. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Great.
From Wyoming Kona.
Awesome.
He's just very like knowledgeable, which I mean every speaker is. He just and Mark was just a fun book because it's a gospel and I love the gospels and it just talks about Jesus. And so he really like brought it to life. And there were a lot of things about the book that I hadn't really taken time to really read through and process. And so overall, that one was great.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. What do you feel like is your biggest takeaway from your BCC?
Definitely that like the Bible is like studyable and it is like obtainable. It is like able to be understood. Definitely. But I think my biggest like eye opener in the school was, it's pretty simple, but reading the Bible, like actually reading it for yourself corrects a lot of like false teachings that you've heard. And I grew up like in a Southern Baptist church and I heard a lot of things that I kind of like my faith was kind of built on because of my first church experience. And just simply reading through 1 Corinthians like crushed so many like lies that I was taught at a young age. And so we just like sat there and read through it and I was like if someone was if I would have just read that at any point in my entire life, I wouldn't have believed some of the lies that I had believed or so it was like very foundational and it was so simple as like if you just read it because there's so much understanding just from reading the whole thing. So very simple but like so huge at the same time.
So good. So good. Well, yeah, I'm excited because Jess is prepping for this next school that's coming in pretty
Yes.
soon. There's 17 students, which is the most students she's had yet. And this will be her 9th BCC that she's going to be director of. So we're super proud of Jess. Do you recommend the BCC to everybody?
Oh my gosh, yes. You can definitely do it. My goal going through it was to not complain or to not, well, I mean, that's good, but like to not like say, oh, it's so hard, or if someone asks about it, just not to even sugarcoat it, but just to be honest. And like I successfully got through it with no all-nighters. Like I went to bed at a decent time and woke up at a decent time every day. Like I finished all my homework on time. I got decent grades. So it's like it's so doable, and it's not like this like scary school. It takes determination, but it's so doable and it's so worth it 100%.
So good. So
Yeah.
good. And then you just wrapped up your TESOL so that you could have the award of doing all of the schools. That's
Yes.
a pretty great group though. Erin
Yeah.
Urabe is like one of the is that who's
Yeah.
done all the schools? I mean, she's like the OG here. She's been here since the very, very, very beginning. So
Yeah.
that's a good list to be
Yeah.
on. So good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for spending some time and sharing about your journey with YWAM Honolulu and the BCC. And then you are school leading for this next school?
Yes.
Awesome. So good. So good. I'm really excited.
Yeah. Thanks.
All right. Well, I think that's it. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.